This episode of Gather and Go is brought to you by Louisville Tourism. Picture yourself in the heart of Bourbon City, where the spirit of the South meets the rich heritage of Kentucky. From urban distilleries to one-of-a-kind attractions, this city offers a perfect blend of tradition and innovation. To plan your unforgettable group trip to Louisville, visit gotolouisville.com. Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to Gather and Go, the podcast that helps you plan, promote, and lead better trips. I'm Brian Jewell. I am your host. I am really glad that you are here with me today. And as always, our promise to you is that we're going to do everything we can to make this investment of your time worth your while. Now, today I have a really fascinating and inspiring featured conversation lined up for you. I'm going to be talking to David Jackson of the Green Book Experience. David's going to share some incredible stories of everyday heroes who pioneered Black travel in the 20th century. He's going to share how today's tourism leaders are preserving this Black travel heritage and talk about how you can find travel experiences that tap into this cultural heritage for your customers. This is a really inspiring conversation. I can't wait for you to hear it. First, though, let's start with some travel news you may have missed. New credit card data shows a slowdown in travel spending. New data from a Bank of America study indicates that spending on travel has decreased over the past year. The study analyzed credit and debit card data for transactions in the 12 months ending March 22nd and found that spending on lodging services and tourism activities was down about 2.5% from the previous year. The study found airline spending fell even faster, dropping around 6% year over year. The slowdown seems to be most pronounced among lower-income households and domestic travelers. And the study found that while some domestic destinations such as New York, Nevada, and Texas saw the steepest declines, spending on international travel actually increased by 2.6% in January and February compared to those months in 2024. The Bank of America Institute, which issued the report, said the softer spending isn't necessarily, quote, a red light, but rather a shift to yellow. And to this point, the Institute said weekly card spending on lodging and tourism remains about 10% higher than it was in 2019. Well, now it's time for the road tip segment of our show. This is the part of every episode where we dig deep into our bag of knowledge from decades on the road and bring you tips we think will make your next trip less stressful and more successful. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was on one of our on-site familiarization trips with some travel leaders and tour operators. And one night on the way back to the hotel from dinner, one of the tour operators asked the bus driver if she could connect her phone to the bus's sound system via Bluetooth. And he showed her how to do that. And she turned on some music. And we ended up having a karaoke party on the way back to the hotel after dinner. It was so much fun. And believe it or not, I had never thought of this before, but it's a really great idea. I'm a big fan of music. I listen to music a lot when I travel. And I thought this was such a fun way to introduce some excitement to the group. And it really inspired me with some ideas that you could use to bring some fun to your travel, especially time on the bus, by connecting your phone to the bus's sound system. Now, most motor coaches these days should be able to do that via Bluetooth. If not, then it's a little bit harder. You may have to use a cable or adapter or something. But a Bluetooth connection should not be difficult to set up. And if you pair a Bluetooth connection with a music streaming service that you can access either through your phone's mobile data or maybe through the bus Wi-Fi, this presents a ton of possibilities. So I want to give you some ideas about some things I think you could do to have a lot of fun with that Bluetooth connection and music streaming service. Number one, it gives you the opportunity to entertain people in your group. Now, you don't want to be playing music all the time because certainly you're going to have guide commentary. And depending on how long your stretches on the motor coach are, you're going to want to give some people some downtime, some quiet time to nap, maybe to watch or listen to some media they have brought along themselves. But here are some things you can do. You could certainly have a karaoke party like we did on that ride back from the restaurant to the hotel. We basically just all sung along with Don't Stop Believin'. It was a great time, and your groups would definitely enjoy that as well. But in addition to just karaoke sing-alongs, you could do games and other sorts of interactive activities. I'm thinking of something like a Name That Tune game, where you pull up music on the phone and you start songs and give people a chance to be the first to raise their hand or call out the name of the song. Maybe give away some fun prizes to people who win that. That would be a great way to pass some time on the road. Another thing you could do would be to build a road trip playlist for your adventure. Now, this could be a playlist of songs that go great anytime you're on the road. Maybe some classic rock, some oldies, favorites like that, or it could be songs related to the place you're going. So I'm thinking of Frank Sinatra's Get Your Kicks if you are traveling to Route 66 destinations, for instance, or maybe his New York, New York, if you are traveling into the Big Apple, something like that just adds a musical element to the adventure and the destination you're visiting. Those are going to be a ton of fun. Another great way you could use music on the coach is to get travelers pumped up in the morning or wound down at night. Now, if you are starting early in the morning, you may notice that people get on the coach maybe a little groggy, sometimes a little grumpy. They don't have a lot of pep in their step. Well, if you are trying to get their spirits up, you could use some kind of hype up music that you play early in the morning that just kind of creates a little bit of adrenaline and gets people feeling good. In the same way, you could use this to reverse effect in the evening, especially if you're leaving some kind of after dinner activity, say a show, a performance, something like that. Why not have a little bit of calming, sort of Zen, wind down music at night that just helps people make that transition from a big sort of hyperactivity into a more relaxed mindset. This could be a great way to help usher people into getting some good sleep at night when they get back to the hotel. Another thing that would be a lot of fun if you've got a stretch of driving is to play DJ or even take requests. Now, this requires you to have that streaming service to where you can pull up music on demand. You can use Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music. There's a variety of them out there. But you could DJ in real time, take requests from your travelers, have them shout out the songs they want, or send you a text from the back of the coach. This is a fun way to engage people and make them feel like they have a part in the entertainment plan on the trip. Or if you really want to get creative, you could let travelers take turns controlling the playlist. That's right. You could pass your phone around and let people pick one song at a time or multiple songs at a time, or you could even let them connect their own phones to the motorcoach entertainment system via Bluetooth. And you never know what kind of songs you're going to get, especially if you're traveling with young travelers. Whatever you do, find some ways to integrate fun into your road time via music. This is a great and free way to liven up your travel time. It's one of those things that's going to make people remember how much fun they had traveling with you. They're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it. That is your road tip of the week. Well, now before we move on, I want to take a minute and share just a little bit of news from us. If you've been following us here at the Group Travel Leader for a while, you may know that in addition to this podcast, of course, we produce a number of tourism magazines and related websites and e-newsletters for people that plan travel for groups of really all kinds. And I want to draw your attention to one of my favorite products of ours. It's called Going on Faith magazine. If you plan travel for churches or other religious organizations, this is a great resource for you. It's a print magazine that comes out 4 times a year. Of course, everything we put in that magazine is also on our website. You can see much of it in our e-newsletter, the Faith Travel Minute. However you consume this content, it's going to bring you lots of ideas and intelligence to help you run more successful and impactful trips for your faith community. If you read Going on Faith in any format, you're going to find articles like domestic and international travel features to give you ideas about new places to take your groups. You're going to find my Faith Travel Essentials column where I break down some of the most important things you need to know about the travel industry to really build a more effective faith travel program. We're going to bring you ideas about trip themes that you may not have thought of before, but that your travelers are sure to love. And of course, there is much, much more. Now, you can check it out and even subscribe for free at goingonfaith.com/start. That landing page is the easiest place to get a taste for what we do in Going on Faith and to sign up in print, to join the email list if you'd rather read it online. However you like to consume content, you can do it right now at goingonfaith.com/start. Well, it's just about time for us to get into our featured conversation with David Jackson. As we do, let me remind you, you can find a wrap-up of some of the most important things David and I talked about in the show notes for this episode. Now, show notes are the text that appears just below the media player wherever you listen to Gather and Go. And in fact, you can find wrap-ups of the most important parts of all our episodes in the show notes for any of them at our website, grouptravelleader.com/podcast, where you can also access our archive of about 75 podcast episodes. Now, I'm also going to come back at the end of the interview and do a quick wrap up of some of those important points that David has for us, just to make sure you don't miss any of them. I want to encourage you to stick around through the end of the interview and wrap up, because after that, I'm going to tell you what my least favorite thing about air travel today is. And let me tell you this, the answer to that question is going to surprise you. That's the topic of today's Hot Minute. You won't want to miss that. We'll be right back with David Jackson. All right, everybody, I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about our sponsor, Louisville, Kentucky. If you're planning a group trip, Louisville Tourism invites you to explore Bourbon City. Begin your bourbon journey at the Kentucky Bourbon Trail Welcome Center at the Fraser History Museum to learn about America's native spirit. Then visit one of Louisville's renowned distilleries to see the artistry, sip handcrafted bourbons, and savor the stories behind every bottle. Add a touch of culture with a visit to the Speed Art Museum or a performance at the Kentucky Center for the Performing Arts. Sports fans can experience race day excitement at Churchill Downs, delve into horse racing history at the Kentucky Derby Museum, celebrate Muhammad Ali's legacy, and discover the craftsmanship of the iconic Slugger bats at the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. With its rich history and dynamic culture, Louisville is the ultimate destination for your group adventures. Learn more at gotolouisville.com. All right, everybody. My guest today is a longtime hospitality sales professional who is helping to tell the stories of America's Black travel history. After many years working for organizations such as the Pennsylvania Convention Center and the Pocono Mountains Convention and Visitors Bureau, he's now the Vice President of Business Development for the Green Book Experience and Executive Director of the Green Book Institute. David Jackson, welcome to the podcast.
Brian, thanks for having me.
I am delighted to have you today. Sounds like you have done just about everything there is to do in the tourism industry. Tell us how you found yourself transitioning into tourism, and then how that brought you to the Green Book work.
I was 38 years old when I had my first official New Year's Eve off in my adult life.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we had just, my wife and I had just had our first child, a couple years prior. And it was time. It was time for me to kind of switch directions. And, I was in the restaurant and the convention center life, which is all encompassing if you know anything about it.
Yeah.
And that led me into the Convention and Visitors Bureau world. And I promoted Bucks County, Pennsylvania for 10 years. Followed by the Pocono Mountains for additional 13 years. But for me, that was the top of the food chain in the hospitality industry. I no longer had to be the first one there and the last one to leave.
Yeah.
But I already knew the language to how to talk to hoteliers, how to talk to conventioneers, how to talk to meeting and event planners. And it was kind of like a seamless transition for me. And I'd kind of never looked back.
So you did that for a long time. Mm-hmm. What was the impetus for getting involved with the Green Book work?
The Green Book kind of came that myself, and I look back at it, Brian, I can be honest with you. Anything that I've ever done in my life that was really had any type of real push to it or really any emphasis to it kind of fell in my lap.
Hmm.
Everything I really wanted to get and tried to get and pushed to get never seemed to pan out.
Hmm.
And in this case it kind of fell in our lap. Now we were with a post-COVID, my couple colleagues of I, we were downsized or however you want to say it, but our departments were released from the Convention and Visitors Bureau world. Sales department at Pocono Mountains decided to go into a different direction. So it left me in a lurch as to, what to do. Do I continue or do I really try something on my own, something different? And got a couple colleagues together. And we said, the industry's been really good to us. How can we give back? And we created a consultancy called KKD Tourism Consultants, which is Karen, Chris, and David.
All right.
All right. And from there, we were given an opportunity to promote the Green Book through the Green Book Foundation. Black Meetings in Tourism magazine came to us and asked if we would assist in that project. And it was, now it has become all encompassing.
Mm.
And that's really where we're at right now. We've changed partners, we've changed members, we've changed the branding of it, going forward to give it its own identity. There are quite a few Green Book projects out there.
Yeah.
Ours we feel is different and holds a place because of our background in the travel and tour industry. So we're taking the data of the sites that are listed in the Green Book and also including what new sites have been made available over the years. We do focus on BIPOC properties, Black, Indigenous, people of color, but the reason for it, because we want to keep the Green Book itself, we're sensitive to it and, what it meant, how important it was for folks to have such a what we call a hands-on Bible, if you would, in your vehicle, knowing what was a safe haven. We're committed to creating the stories that have yet to be told, helping out business owners and that had not really felt like they got a whole lot of push from the media. They don't have a whole lot of marketing dollars. So we think we are in a position now to help a lot of people and to open a lot of eyes and to show a part of America that really needs to be told. We want to hear the authentic stories. And we want to have fun doing it and to learn from it and to educate the next generation.
Yeah. Tell us about the historic Green Book. Some people may be hearing about it for the first time. So what was the Green Book? What made it such an important thing in American history?
Well, you got to start with the name Green. Victor Hugo Green is his name. A gentleman from Harlem. And he was a postal worker. Saw a need. Found a need that, particularly in the Jim Crow era, traveling in the Deep South, wasn't always safe to go to certain areas or certain places. Why not create a directory that would identify such places that are safe to go, whether it be for lodging, whether it be for a meal, whether it be for entertainment, whether it be to get gasoline, which they called petrol at the time.
Yeah.
And he knew because he's dropping the mail at these places.
Yeah.
And so what places are safe and what places you may want to stay away from. Being a postal worker and the U.S. Postal Service being one of the biggest advocates for hiring African Americans, it creates a small army across the country are just feeding information as to these safe havens. And it grows and grows and grows and reaches all the way coast to coast and, abroad, that it's now become something that I think it's 15,000 that had gotten prints at its final printing, which was in 1963.
Wow.
So some 1938, 39 to 63, this book keeps getting updated because businesses go out of business and some places get added on, and they want to maintain its integrity by something you could really trust.
Yeah.
Something that you felt you didn't want to leave home without putting it in your glove compartment.
Yeah. It sounds like it went all the way really up into the heart of the civil rights movement in the 60s.
That's when it would end it. And that was his goal. That was his original goal, that one day it wouldn't be needed. That something like this wouldn't, have to be in someone's car. I talked to my parents about it. They're in their 80s now, 84, and they used to travel from Pennsylvania down to Virginia, family and so on. And my dad said, we never owned a green book, but we knew what places we could stop and what places we should avoid in our journey. And I always remember a shoebox, he said. I said, what's with the shoebox? He said, and it always had grease stains in it because we used to pack chicken and we used to have, things to drink. And we even had, a bucket in case you had to relieve yourself, that whole thing. Because you just never knew, is what you're going to find yourself, what situation you may find yourself in. And he goes, the worst problem that we could ever have is if you're traveling and you have any type of stomach ailment. Because that can really get a little awkward, to say the least. Yeah. But to think about just something like that, you have to hear it from the folks that lived it.
Absolutely.
And that's why we're really up against the clock to get as many of these stories in, as well as planting these properties and facilities in the directory. So it's if you look at the book, if you look in it, they'll have sections for tourist homes, they call it. That's a heading, tourist home. That's your original Airbnb.
Oh, wow.
Because folks are putting down their name and their home address as a place to stop. They don't know you, you don't know them, but they're putting their home out there and saying, if you're in town, if you're traveling through Greensboro, North Carolina, you would come to Miss Dottie Brown's house at 13 West Oakland Avenue, and there'll be a warm bed for you. There's stories upon stories to be told. We talked about Lyndon Baines Johnson as one example. Lyndon Baines Johnson became the president of the United States living in Texas, and he and his wife, Lady Bird, are now packing up their office in Texas and got to move to Washington, D.C. office. And they take their number one assistant, who happens to be an African-American woman, who happens to be their head chef, along with them for the ride. And on their way to Washington, they're appalled at how many places would not allow them entrance or not allow them to use their services as long as they had this African-American woman in their presence.
Wow.
They arrive in D.C. and, the story, becomes the number one civil rights activist in the country.
Right.
Because he saw it firsthand.
Yeah.
These stories and many more are yet to be told. It's got to be an avenue. It happened. It's real.
Right.
It's not made up. But why not experience it for yourself?
Yeah.
But where do we begin? Do we have to go through several websites to get all this information, or can we go to one source?
Yeah. And that's what you guys are doing, right? You're gathering stories, you're cataloging sites and putting it all in one place where travelers can find it and learn the history and also find ways to interact with it in the 2020s.
Exactly. We've kind of broken it up into pieces because it is a major project. There's a piece of us, we have a company a platform that just recognizes if you're traveling solo or with family. And then another platform that recognizes if you're traveling with a group of 10 or more. So we can now divide those properties that are out there that can handle groups and those that can't.
Yeah.
And you make your decisions from there, set up an itinerary, and The goal is to be able to put pins on the map and it open up for you and give you the directions and give you the hours and, the phone number if you need to reach them directly and, set your tours up that way. And no one's doing it, because again, I see why having gotten into the project now,
It's a lot of work.
there's a lot. It's a lot, but it's a worthy. It's a worthy work. When we first started, I did a similar interview when we first began, and the interviewer said, it's either one of two things. Either starting a business during COVID, you're either crazy or genius. And really made me think. I'm like, am I crazy? Or is this crazy? But every time you want to even think about slowing down or maybe moving in a different direction, it seems like the project rewards you with another reason to keep going. For example, we were given information that George Benson had written a theme song. George Benson, a famous singer, writer, producer, written a theme song for the project.
Yeah.
And, so that's sitting there in the archives. There's legal teams now trying to get the Green Book on Broadway.
Wow.
And so just when you think, oh boy, we just, when we got news that, the Institute, our nonprofit side had gotten its full 501c3, it's, we got to keep going. We got to stop, it won't allow us to stop because it is important. And this next generation there's a lot of this generation, the younger kids, they don't realize what their forefathers endured.
Right.
And I was always taught that in order to know where you're going, you got to know where you've been.
Yeah.
Now, the education and the camaraderie that you find, that's what you find, that we're more alike than not,
Right.
but let's see it for ourselves.
Yeah. So speaking of history, have you guys found in your research some historic places that were in the original Green Book that are still travel businesses, still open for visitors, and that are actively telling that story of their past in addition to serving meals or giving people, accommodations?
You're going to have properties that were in the original Green Book that are operating and didn't know it.
Wow.
Or thought they may have been listed, but you can't find it. You can't find the evidence, so that's the investigative work that we do. You could say that in 1938, you were a hotel, but then you go back to that same address now, and that hotel is now condominiums or an apartment building, something like that, or an open lot, or super Walmart. It can, it varies all across the board. One of the staples is the YMCA. A lot of them are still operable, and we have a lot of fun when we go out and we meet the public and we start showing them examples of what the Green Book looks like. Initially, they get excited because the first thing you do is you pick it up and you start leaping through the book to see your hometown. It's inevitable, and to see their eyes light up and then to go down. I know that address. I recognize that address. Hey, that place is still there. I'm sure. I mean, that hotel is still, so we get a lot of information that way as well.
Yeah.
But it's something that it's almost like an old story that's brand new.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the new parts that you guys are really active on is partnering with other organizations to sort of expand the cultural tent and highlight some cultural sites related to other cultures. So tell us some about the people you're partnering with and the sites that they are bringing to the index.
Yeah, we have we deal very strongly with the indigenous community, and we like to start to open up some lanes for folks to visit their destinations as well. It's something I've always been interested in. My great-grandmother was a Seminole, 100% Seminole Indian from Florida. And as a kid, I'd see this woman hanging up on the wall in my grandmother's house with these long pigtails. And I'd always, so one day I just asked, who is that? So it's your
Yeah.
great grandmother, and she's Native American. So it's always been in my heart. Now this opened up a gate so we can really put our money where our mouth is and say, you know what, there's some opportunities here too. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stories to be told, and we're the ones that can actually do it because there's a lot of sensitivity involving going to destinations that may on a reservation or something like that, where they're sacred lands,
Mm.
So as much information as you can get going into those properties and those destinations, and it's better. For example, you could bring in a group of guests on some native land and somebody spit on the ground, and all of a sudden everything shuts down, that
Right.
sacred land. I knew, someone could say, I knew we shouldn't allow anybody to come and see this. And we don't want that.
Right.
Now, we want it to be true. We want it to be authentic, but we also want to be sensitive to what's available. We're dealing with what we call cultural travel. So
Mhm.
we are open, we're open for the BIPOC community to really showcase themselves in a new and fresh way that
Yeah.
perhaps may have eluded them in the past.
Yeah.
And so right now we're working with various destinations to take that information and give it to us so we can put it up and promote it and actually bring people to your area.
Talk to us about that potential impact that opening up cultural tourism can have on communities, minority communities, historically marginalized groups. What does that represent for them?
Fresh start,
Mm.
oh my, it's like manna from heaven. It's like, oh my goodness, this is great. We've been promoting ourselves. We've been doing the best that we can, but now you're saying you can now promote us to a national audience, and folks that are coming into town that didn't even know we existed can now maybe extend their tourism trip or even come to the area because of us. Whether it be a museum, a festival, uh, the hot new soul food restaurant in town,
Yeah.
and you can quadruple that by adding in overnight lodging packages and walking tours that perhaps they didn't know existed. This is a new day. This is a
Yeah.
new revenue stream. We have the assets. Now we can also promote and bring up a portion of our destination that perhaps has been underserved. And I'll admit it, it have been underserved. We haven't done a lot with it. And now you're giving us a platform to say, yeah, we're open for business, just like the Green Book did originally. We're open for business. You're safe,
Yeah.
and you can have, you can come and learn, have fun, and tell your friends about it.
Yeah. So we have a lot of tour operators in our audience who I'm sure would love to kind of start to dig into this resource and use it to inspire future trip plans. How do they go about doing that? What's the practical process like for them to tap into these materials?
Right now, we're asking them to go the group side of our platforms with the group collect,
Hmm.
and it's called Supplier Link. So if you go on our website and look up, greenbookexperience.com, you'll see a tab that says sign up for Supplier Link. Go in there as a tour operator, sign up, and then that way you'll be made available of this information as it grows. As the data grows, you can grow with it, and you'll have access at no cost to you. We want to make this as accessible as possible. That's the way I would suggest as an operator, if you're so inclined. And I think everyone would at least want to have a portion of that in their portfolio as an
Yeah.
offering that they can. that they can use for both individual trips or organizations, family reunions. You have your alumni services. All everybody can have a piece of this. And as an operator, I would want to have something like this available to me. It reduces the amount of work I have to do.
Absolutely. That's a win-win. So how many different listings is an operator going to find if they log in and start looking at that?
Well, it's a growing, it's still growing. But yeah, you're definitely going to find primarily places to visit, uh, places to that are able to accommodate groups that if you needed something with meals attached, it'll condense it down so that it makes your search a lot easier. If you need somewhere with free parking, you need another destination that's open on weekends, that type of thing. That's really where we're looking to help and to support, even letting folks know that, certain areas have special Groupons on Wednesdays where you can get in with no charge. You wouldn't know that otherwise.
Yeah.
And you're planning your trip around that, or suggests you make reservations a month in advance, as opposed to you can show up without advance notice and still have accommodations. These are things when we're working with 50 or plus people, the details matter.
Yeah.
So as much information as you can get. That's why I say, sign up, get yourself into the system first. And then as the system grows around you, it'll transform some of the ways that you're planning your trips and tours moving forward.
Yeah. What about somebody who works for CVB like you used to, who says, hey, I think we've got 3 or 4 places in town that should be on this list. How do they go about working with you guys to get that highlight?
Yeah, go again. There's an opportunity to go on Green Book and website and request information, or in this case, request a meeting with us where we can, set up, talk about it, get you tied into our tech folks, and show you exactly how to download this information. And we eventually, phase 2, we want to be able to have some of the properties even offer audio bits on them. So you click on it, it'll give you a little brief, summary of what they're about and their history, that type of thing, 30 seconds worth. And there's so much new frontier to be covered with this. But right now is the time, particularly from the group side, to get it in because it's being downloaded at no cost to the destination. Now is the time to get in and get your voice heard, and really promote your members or non-members. Now you have an opportunity now to maybe showcase some facilities that you didn't have much for in the past. That now you can really let folks know, hey, why haven't you been here? Didn't you know that we have, all these assets? And people are like, yeah, why haven't we been there? Let's go next month.
Yeah.
Let's plan something out. Now it's exciting because, and it's fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, David, what's the best way for people to either follow you or follow the organization online to, stay abreast of what's going on and hear news and stay in touch?
Well, we got the LinkedIn, we got the Facebook. I always say go to the web. Yeah, go to the website. Instagram. Go to the website, and that was going to answer a lot of your questions. We spent a lot of time on that. If you want to get the history on us, we have great videos. We've done commercials. We've done interviews. We have opened up some opportunities for folks to share their stories. We have a new section in our web portfolio, which is called I've Been There. I've Been There is where you can go on and say, guess what? I've been to these places in the Green Book, and this is what we found, and it's exciting. You should go to, and just don't go on Tuesdays because, that kind of stuff. And it starts conversations, and it keeps it real.
Yeah.
It keeps folks connecting with one another. And we're really one big community all coming together, and we're just given, we're given a new vision for how you plan your travel. And it's kind of mocked up from how it was done back in the 30s. It can be done now, but with even newer and fresher material to work with.
Yeah. Great ideas. Well, David, I could talk to you about this all day. I want to let you go, but before we do, we have some questions we ask everybody, and these are just for fun. So no pressure.
Okay. All right.
Just answer off the top of your head. When you travel, do you book a window seat or an aisle seat?
I prefer window.
Yeah. Just like that view?
Yes, sir. I like it. Plus, I'm pretty long leg, and my legs always stick out in the aisles, and I've gotten hit by more than one beverage tray.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's no fun. So what is one thing in your carry-on that you wouldn't travel without?
Good question. One thing in my carry-on that I wouldn't travel without. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my adapter to keep my phone plugged in.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't leave without that.
That's one of those things where if you accidentally leave it at home, you're stopping at a store somewhere.
You're going to buy one. Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's happened to me more than once.
Yep, me too. Me too. So if you had a free airline pass and a week with nothing else to do, where would you be headed next?
Somewhere warm, man. Yeah, I'm going to the Virgin Islands or somewhere. Yeah,
Wow.
like just for a minute, just it's white sand, the clear water. Yeah, just for a minute. I don't need a whole lot. I'm from the Northeast. I can take the cold, but it's something about that heat when it gets on, it changes your whole attitude.
Thaw you out for a couple of days, right?
Yeah, it's just for a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, our last question is, what's one thing you have seen or done on the road that you wish you could go back and experience again with somebody you love?
Oh, man. It's funny because, I've traveled to most every city around the country, but, and again, I'm from the Philadelphia area, but driving into New York City, and you got a little soft jazz going in. It's just something about it that, and you're with someone that you really care about going into it. It's a special time. That comes to mind first.
Nothing like it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
David, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Brian Jewell, has been my honor.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with David Jackson. I hope you found it as inspiring as I did. And I want to take a minute to recap a few of the things that made the biggest impact on me during that conversation. I hope they're meaningful to you as well. When we were talking about the historic Green Book and what it meant for travelers in the Jim Crow era, of course, David recounted memories his parents shared with him about traveling with a shoebox of chicken and a bucket for bathroom stops because they didn't know what would be a safe place for them to go as African Americans traveling at that time. And he went on to share some of the stories of people who listed their private homes in the Green Book. He said, these folks are putting down their names and home addresses as a place to stop. They don't know you and you don't know them. But they're saying if you're in town, there will be a warm bed for you. And he said there are stories upon stories to be told. I don't know about you, but I find this massively inspiring. Of course, today, the thought of opening your home to strangers can be a little bit unsettling. Even more than that, the idea of having people just stop in without advance notice, well, that just freaks me right out. But this makes such an important point. Number one, about how difficult it was for Black people to travel during the segregation era, but also how much these folks helped each other out and the great lengths they went to create a safe travel environment. And I think this is something we can all be inspired by. Number one, how grateful should we be that society has come so far since then that we don't have to have something like the Green Book to help people travel in a safe way. But number two, if travel was so important to the people of the Green Book era that they were willing to open their homes to strangers, how much should we value it today, and how much should we continue that legacy of making travel safe and accessible for everybody? I love that idea. Now, when we were talking about Green Book properties from back in the day that are still around in 2025, David said, you're going to have properties that are still operating and were in the original Green Book and didn't know it. And he said, we have a lot of fun when we go out and meet the public. They get excited. They pick up the book and start leafing through it to find their hometown. It's almost like an old story that is brand new. I would encourage you to do this, whether you're a travel seller or a travel buyer. Look up this directory, get your hands on one of the old Green Books, and see who in your city or in the destinations you're visiting took this step to making travel accessible and safe. It's going to be inspiring to you, and it might uncover a story about your hometown or about a place you're visiting that you didn't know, maybe a story that you can share with your groups that is going to thrill and inspire them as well. Now, when we were talking about the potential impact of increased cultural tourism that could come from the Green Book experience and similar outreach, David said, it represents a fresh start. It's like manna from heaven. You're saying you can now promote us to a national audience, and folks that are coming into town that didn't even know we existed can extend their trip or come to the area because of us. He said, this is a new day. This is a new revenue stream. I think this is something we can all be encouraged about, as our industry grapples with how to platform and publicize people that have great stories to tell and haven't been part of the tourism ecosystem. I think we can all be inspired by what kind of opportunity this represents. There are so many great stories to be told around the United States. There are so many wonderful neighborhoods just below the radar that don't get visited by many group tours, that don't have a large platform or a lot of accessibility. But these kind of places present opportunities for incredibly authentic and moving experiences. I've seen it myself time and time again. And if you will do the work, make the investment in finding these places and exposing your groups to them, I guarantee you're going to find some hugely inspiring experiences that very often end up being the highlight of an entire trip. So much potential here. Thank you so much to David Jackson for sharing that with us. Well, like many of you, I have been on the road a lot this year. I've done a fair amount of flying. And, there are a lot of people who like to complain about the experience of air travel. And I understand where they're coming from. Of course, air travel is an important and essential part of what we do. There are parts of that experience that are great. There are parts that are kind of no fun at all. But based on my experiences flying this year, I've kind of come to a new conclusion about what is good and what's not so good about air travel. And that's going to be the topic of today's Hot Minute. Yeah, that's right. The Hot Minute is the portion of the show where I take 60 seconds to bring you my unfiltered thoughts about an issue that impacts tourism every day. And today, I'm going to answer the question, what is the worst thing about air travel in 2025? So let's put 60 seconds on the clock and get into it. From a historical perspective, flying is better today than ever before. But one part of air travel is getting worse: getting a good meal in an airport. Every time I sit down at an airport restaurant these days, I have to scan a QR code on the table to get a menu and place an order on my own. I hate these mobile systems. They're slow and they're clunky. They make it harder, not easier, to order. And they don't get me my food any faster. Now, I'm sure restaurant managers would say these systems save on labor costs. But if that's the case, why are you still charging me $20 for a Caesar salad? or $10 for a side of fries. For most of my life in travel, terminal restaurants have been a refuge from the hassles of flying. But if this is the future of airport dining, I think I'd rather just eat on the plane. Well, that's the Hot Minute. That's how I see things anyway. Of course, as always, you're welcome to disagree with me, and we can still be friends. And hey, whether you agree or disagree, we would love to hear from you. You can send your thoughts, questions, or airport dining horror stories to podcast@grouptravelleader.com. I love hearing from you. I read every email that comes into that address. And hey, you never know. Your ideas might just be the topic of the next Hot Minute. And hey, while you're in the mood to give us some feedback, would you do me a big favor? Would you go to your favorite podcast playing app? And if you haven't already subscribed to the show, hit that follow button so you get the next episode automatically. And while you're there, if you would give us a rating, leave us a review, those are so helpful. And I am so thankful to every one of you who has done that so far. My thanks as well to David Jackson for joining us today. On the next episode, I'm going to bring you a really cool conversation with Mantis Savinas of Surf Yoga Beer. He's going to talk all about how he built a thriving tour business around fitness and adventure travel. You won't want to miss that one. Until then, though, remember this. At the end of the day, we're all on this trip together, so let's make it a good one. See you next time on Gather and Go. Gather and Go is hosted and executive produced by me, Brian Jewell. Our publisher is Mac Lacey. Danya Simmons is our creative director. Ashley Ricks is our circulation manager and graphic designer. Our sales team is Kyle Anderson and Talisa Reck. To advertise on the podcast, call Talisa at 859-253-0455. Gather and Go is a production of the Group Travel Leader. For more information about our magazines, podcasts, and events, visit us online at grouptravelleader.com. This episode of Gather and Go was sponsored by Louisville Tourism. From sipping bourbon to exploring cultural gems, Louisville welcomes groups with open arms and endless possibilities. Begin planning your Bourbon City adventure at gotolouisville.com.